Hello,
Linda.
everybody. This is Lawborn. Go ahead, Linda. I'm so sorry.
Whoops.
All right, we're all here. Sure, I'm on Spreaker and YouTube under Linda Irwin. Also, I'm on Twitter at Insanity Surfers and at Continuum X. Crash?
This is Crash Exile, also known as Lawborn. I can be found on YouTube, Twitter, and Spreaker.
And I just noticed my microphone was off. Damn it!
Uh-oh.
Sorry about that. Sorry, let me redo my introduction. Today, on today's podcast, we're going to be discussing our video and content creation process. First up is we're going to be discussing research and scripting. So basically how we like to find our content and how we like to bring it to life for y'all. As I said, you already heard what their social media is. And if you're watching this live, you already know Core955 at Twitch. And it'll also be on my YouTube. Doc, did you introduce yourself?
No, you can find me at eclecticforun.me. That's eclecticforun.me.
Make sure you check his website out. He's been working all day and night on it just for me to crash it. Alright, so...
One widget took 4 hours.
Alright. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Alright, so is it... I heard Doc's introduction, but did everybody else introduce themselves?
Mm-hmm. Good for you to join us, mate.
Yeah, I'm glad I arrived just in time. All right, I am Spider-Fan, the official NFL analyst for Sports Coast to Coast. As you all might know, the season recently wrapped up with the Super Bowl, and you can look at all of my past work from this season and past seasons on Sports Coast to Coast. And because of last week's podcast, for those of you that listened to that, I am now on bitview.net. I am also Spider-Fan on there. I've been having a lot of fun on there, and I've been posting a bunch of stuff. I have a couple reviews and some of my thoughts on various news that have happened in both the football and pop culture world. I've got my most recent video. I gave my thoughts on the firing of Gina Carano from Lucasfilm, and did a couple reviews. I did a review of the anime series Black Lagoon, as well as Charlie's Angels from 2000, amongst other videos, so feel free to check those out.
Alright, so who wants to start with their portion? Who wants to start for the scripting or research?
I can actually cover both at the same time here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back with Awesome Insanity Surfers podcast under the Linda Irwin Spreaker channel, as well as some of the other ones I do on there, such as Tom and Paul Off the Wall. I'll run across an interesting article or hear something on the news, and I'll decide to go check it out, because not only am I going to cover the topic, but I'm going to do a little twisting to make it comedic. So I will go read up on it, and I will see what I can do with it to make it interesting and funny at the same time. And that's basing it on how my characters, what their personalities are, and how they would present it and make it funny. So what I end up doing is I'll sometimes copy all the links down so I can put them in the description, but I'll actually sometimes read little snippets, either in my characters or my AI text-to-speech characters, and we'll have guests on. For example, with Tom and Paul Off the Wall, some of the more recent ones have to do with congressional changing the language in government documents to be gender inclusive and not male or female specific, or the Boston Dynamics robots who put out a dancing video of their robots. Just some examples of some of the things that I could take that are actual news and put them into something interesting and funny. So Tom and Paul are like morning radio hosts. They play music and they also have guests on. So they had AIs on that would be interesting to the topic. For example, Harry and Emma are actual male and female AIs that are married. So that came under the gender inclusive topic. And Hazel, who loves to dance, her character, you can find these characters back on the Awesome Insanity Surfers podcasts. She talked about the dancing robots. So that's where the scripting comes in. Once I've decided what I'm going to do with it and how I'm going to twist it, I'll just sit down and get into the mindset of the characters I'm writing for, whether they're my human voice characters or whether they're the text-to-speech AI, and I'll sit down and write out the entire dialogue. Now, if it's my voice characters, then I have to actually physically record it, and I have to bounce back and forth, so that takes a little bit of work. But if it's a text-to-speech, I've written it all out, I can copy and paste it into Balabolka is what I use for that actually puts it into speech. And then I edit it all together later. But that's how I come up with what I do for that.
All right.
I guess I can go next if.
Sure, take the reins.
Well, sort of similarly to Linda, as far as my most recent content that I've been uploading on BitView, that is solely text-to-speech. And so basically, because of that, one of the advantages that actually comes with that is I'm both able to script sort of and sort of record. So basically, I can type whatever I'm thinking in my head. I can put it on the screen, listen back to it if the words don't necessarily come out right, or I just don't like the way it sounds, whatever the case. I can edit it from there. And so once I've finally got all of that on paper, so to speak, from there I can take that audio file. Now, what I used to do when I would do my Web of Vlogs series, which those of you who might have found me on Zipcast or VidBid or the various other places I've been might remember, for those videos, originally I actually didn't script those, and basically I just sort of filmed myself talking and then sort of edited the raw footage. For example, I'd have like a 5-minute video, but it would be like 20 or 25 minutes of footage that I would basically just chop up. Now, I did eventually start to script those, and basically how I would start out with that is, like Linda, I would have a news article that I would find and go, okay, there's some bit of news, whether it's video game related, movie related, whatever the case may be, something that I wanted to discuss. And basically from there, I would actually have videos that I would have completely envisioned on what they would look and sound like in my head, actually. So basically, once I sat and got that vision in my head, my goal was, I have what this video looks like in my brain. My intent is to make this look exactly and sound exactly and look exactly like how I want it to be. So from there, I would go to Google Docs and I would hammer out a script, print it out, and turn the camera on, record, and then edit from there. Basically, that's what would help me edit from there. And then when I did my Spider-Fan-ons, where it was my voice, a lot of that was just I would find a news article and then I would have notes of some sort. I wouldn't specifically script those. What I would do is I would take notes of points that I wanted to make in that video, or sometimes, like if it was something like NFL free agency or the NFL draft or something, basically what I would do is I would have a list of the players drafted that I felt like I wanted to talk about, and basically from there just give my raw thoughts on, was basically how I did that as well. So from the scripting perspective, I've come at it from pretty much all angles: unscripted, scripted, notes, and the text to speech.
Spider,
So
you're losing your access to text to speech.
Well, okay then.
I second that. I'm sorry, Spidey, but I think we have to revoke those privileges from you.
Okay.
So
Sorry, we didn't mean to interrupt. I was just cracking a joke.
no, I knew everybody was cracking a joke about that. I've heard it sound bad and other people when other people used to do it like Kratos, but I don't know. There's something about the way it sounds, and as I explained in my first video, not to get too off topic, but as I explained in the first video that I did, it might not sound great, but I like the way it sounds, and frankly, it allows me to do the way I'm doing my videos now. It allows me to make more of them, so I'm really really enjoying that. So
Honestly,
as I said, not every video will be text to speech. I'll have videos that aren't, but for just like news thoughts or even some of those reviews, that's at least in the near future, that's I'm thinking about doing that. But I can understand why that might be off-putting, especially in this day and age. But
there's just something. Honestly, I have nothing against the text to speech. It's just that specific one kind of hurts my ears.
yeah, and I could look and find one that might sound better. I could, as you suggested that I do that, so I could look into that. But anyway, I don't want to get too off topic. But just even using that as far as scripting, as far as scripting goes, that allows me to basically edit my script as I'm doing the video, so it ends up being what's the word for that? Killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, I get you. Alright, so Doc, you want to discuss what you like to do, or Crash?
No, I'm already talking first, so I think Crash and his caffeine rush will have to wait a minute. I don't know.
That might be nice.
I honestly have trouble. I have trouble scripting and putting things together because I'm always thinking of everything at once, the climax, the beginning, how I'm going to conclude it, and I never really know where I'm going to start. Like, for example, I've had writings before where I would almost write it sort of in descending order. I'd write the very end of it before going back to the beginning. And, well, right now I'm doing a parody of a creepy podcast, but for a creepypasta. And I'm sort of reading it right now, and I'm following the story of the creepypasta, and I'm thinking about a story in my head that I'm sort of parodizing off of. And I'm just going one paragraph at a time, and yeah, I'm sort of just rewriting it as I see fit. But I don't know, it gets a little bit tricky. Like, parodizing something like this, I have to remember sort of my own syntax. Like, when I'm writing and I put down, say, a figure, a number of people, this, that, I have to remember to carry it all the way down, because I'm just sort of winging this without really, working on a well-organized script. And this is something a little bit new to me, but so far I think I've been doing okay with it.
Yeah, because, to be fair, your passion really is writing in general, ain't it?
Yeah.
So I know you could, considering you don't specifically make just videos, you could also focus on talking about how you like to write your articles, or how you like to come up with topics for articles.
Well, honestly, there's no easy way to come up with that. It's just, without trying to sound like a hippie, something like that just kind of has to come to you. It has to it has to haunt you in your head, basically. I write about something when it's one of the only things I can think about. I'm like, okay, this idea is possessing me. I have to put it in the paper. I have to print it. I want people to read this.
And I would share similar sentiments with Doc on that. I mean, especially back in the day when I would make videos, unless it was something that I really felt like, man, I've got a lot to say about this. This is something that I really want my thoughts out there on, or just a topic that I really felt like discussing, I would make a video. There would be sometimes big news or whatever that I just go, I don't know what to say about that. But when that creative urge hits you, then you can just take off from there.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I do.
Alright, so I'll discuss what I like to do. So I have a huge backlog, especially given I tend to focus on gaming-related content. I have a large backlog of just different games and things I like to look at. Honestly, my first step is I usually will go through, talk to my artist, give them a big pile of what they could do. I usually let them pick the game. Whatever they want to bring to life, I'll usually cover that. So once I've gotten my chosen game, I will then basically start doing my research on it. I'll try to find out everything I can, when it was developed, who developed it, the team behind it, everything that could be of relevance or interest to how the game came out. And honestly, that's kind of a lot of what I do. Then once I do that, I spend a good couple hours actually playing through the game. So most of the time I try to play the game through completion, but certain games like, say, Dark Souls, really long-winded RPGs, you just can't put, 150 hours into every video. I'm just playing alone. So once I've played enough of it, I start pretty much putting my thoughts together on the game itself. And that's kind of it. At least when I'm doing specific topics. Well, specific games. Any questions?
Core, do you ever have to write a script out, or do you just wing it?
Oh, I used to wing it. Now I heavily script everything. Mostly because, honestly, I find it's real, especially with my new writing style, because I used to heavily segment my videos. Now I broke it down into 5 segments that I find are a lot more cohesive of a product and make it a lot easier to stay on topic while still discussing relevant topics. Like, say I used to do gameplay, controls, and enemies. Now I've bundled all 3 of those together into just gameplay, which was a logical step.
Now let me ask you this: what sort of creative process led you into revising your writing style, into making this change? Because it feels to me like you've really developed, you really cultivated your style. I mean, I go back and watch a video from, say, 4 years ago, and if not for the voice, it's almost like listening to a different person. Like, what inspired you to make these changes?
Honestly, I just wasn't happy with how, like, some of the videos would just come across, like my Daymare review, which was honestly full of a lot of anger, but it was often unfocused, unkempt. I was just going at it, pretty much. And I realized that I need to take a step back, revise how I actually want to focus on these topics, because I don't want to be basically losing my crap on them. I'm not AVGN, I don't have the personality to just go on a large expletive-filled rant and really pull it off as nearly as funny as he can. Because that man has a creativity when it comes to profanity that I don't think many people can match.
This is true. So what about you, Lawborn? What's the scripting or lack thereof, or what's the research? What do you do with your content as far as the pre-production goes?
Give me a second. I still have bronchitis. Okay, that was gross. All right. You can call me Crash, by the way. Right now, script writing. I have to do a lot of script writing, line by line, and I do it with pen and paper still. Because what I've noticed with a computer, I'll type fast enough where there's lots and lots of typos, and sometimes those typos will creep into the editing process. So I have to do one line at a time because my videos are so heavily edited sometimes. Now, I'm perfectly capable of being like your standard commenter who can jump in front of the camera and just yak his head off, and the video takes off. But I want to be a storyteller and not just somebody who comments on things. Let me tell you something I've learned. I have brand new respect for people who make movies and television shows. I have brand new respect for the cameraman and the guy that has to edit the videos. Because right now, what we're doing right now, just conversing back and forth, that's easy. Or getting in front of the camera and running it like a vlog, that's easy too. Editing and script writing, that is an all day long process. So when I make a video, it can take a couple of days. Which is why I don't pound out material like I used to, unless it's just something similar to the videos I've done recently where I just turn on the mic and talk. In the past, I would heavily edit them, so that's kind of important. And editing, I think, holds people's attention better. As for the script writing, I have to do that because what I've noticed here in recent times, I joined a new website and just turn on the mic and talk, and those videos are just so horrible. Really bad. Because thoughts don't come quickly enough. Let's see, what else? Storytelling. I have also learned that when you're trying to create like world building, I used to be, you guys don't know this, but I used to be heavily into pen and paper role-playing games.
Mm-hmm.
So, believe it or not, world building is actually kind of easy for me because I've had like 25 years of practice. So what I did for my little series that I collaborated with Linda with, I just broke out my old game books, built the world from scratch. And I think it's a pretty original storyline, which is becoming a rare thing on the internet nowadays.
Well, you inspired me to do a lot of my side of Crash Dystopia, drawing from what we knew would happen in the future and how that ties into what's going on now in our world. And I have to say some of that was scripted and some of it was just stream of consciousness. So just depended on what I felt like that day.
Yeah, and you wouldn't believe how difficult it was just to come up with the timeline. Because I went out tripping out across YouTube. Oh gosh, when did we first encounter each other on Vidly? Like 2018 or something like that?
Yeah.
I went tripping out across YouTube, and there aren't that many people who do a regular series like that. And if they do, it's like 3 or 4 episodes, and the channel's done. There's no more uploads, which I wanted to do something long term.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard work, though, man. I have learned recently, because once the inspiration dies, it's gone. That's kind of where stuff like that starts, is with the inspiration.
Well, you inspired me, and I now have 21 episodes on Spreaker.
Yeah, and I understand they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, a lot of people like it. A lot of people are going, I hope this doesn't really happen.
Well, you guys were mentioning, I think all of you mentioned how to do research. I came up with a storyline from existing technologies, believe it or not. It started at existing technologies like the Starlink satellites and all that, and I just extrapolated from there.
Yes, and I myself had seen things on the news about what they were planning for future technology, and I just kind of ran with that. For example, automated warehouse work where people operate the robots from their own homes, their own computers. Teaching from home. Now that I actually wrote before school was ready to come back after the pandemic, and how they were doing remote learning, and I just figured that would be something they would do in the future to prevent cross-contamination in case somebody did carry some sort of virus or something. Maybe not for the little ones, and then again, that's where they're going. They're trying to get the little ones back into school, but the older ones that could handle being online and doing virtual learning.
Yeah, and there really is a chip they plan on sticking inside of people's skulls. Elon Musk came up with this idea.
Oh no, you put that conspiracy thing back in a bag before I beat you with the bag.
Oh no, it's not a conspiracy. It's pure fiction, dude.
Oh.
What I'm working on was just pure fiction. We'll be moving on to other things in the future. Right now, I'm focusing on just... My goal now is to put the social back into some of these social media sites like BitView and all that. So what I've been doing is taking people's random comments that they leave on my channel and just making a quick video responding to the comment.
Mm-hmm.
One thing the internet taught me years ago, speaking of research, if I'm going to debate on the internet, I have to provide those sources. So I've been gathering up news clips and everything before I get started on my next project. I'm kind of worded out. Does anybody else want to take it up? Have you already spoken, Doc?
Yeah, since you mentioned BitView, actually, I feel like a lot of people that use BitView wouldn't be quite as enthusiastic about it if they knew what BitView sort of was, and that it's sort of like it's a live time machine of YouTube, and well, essentially, it's supposedly, if it lasts long enough, they're going to keep developing it until it eventually resembles what modern day YouTube looks like, which I think modern day YouTube is why people aren't on YouTube, but yeah, definitely interesting.
You wouldn't believe how many itty-bitty modern-day YouTube clones are popping up all over the internet. It's not just the clones of the old YouTube. It's all of the new stuff coming along.
Oh my. Do you have any by name recently? Because I haven't really been keeping tabs on this stuff.
Let's see. Let me think. There's one website that's not doing... Oh, shoot. And it was on my brain. Here it is. There's one website that is not doing well at all. I uploaded some videos, and they have, like, after months, it's 0 views. It's called Breach TV.
Oh my.
Not that bad a website. Nobody uses it. And I mean nobody. I don't know why it still exists. There's another one called Brand New Tube. That is the most unoriginal name I've ever encountered.
I gotta take a look at this one.
It's all one word. Brand New Tube.
Brand New Tube.
Hello, Black Cat.
Okay.
And yeah, honestly, Crash, taking it back to scripting, I actually find the opposite in my case. Once I sit down and start writing, it just flows, and I just basically... Honestly, if I sit down and get productive, I could crank out 5 or 6 scripts in a shift. Especially if I'm in, like, for Zomboid, I cranked out
I love that game.
tailoring mechanics and first aid video scripts all in one sitting.
That game is so 90s.
Crash, if I could just,
don't
bump
know.
in for a sec. This brand new tube that you just directed me to, this is a bit unholy. This is the most uncanny thing I've ever looked at. This is this is like YouTube, but it's a side of YouTube
well-designed
that I don't.
I did not say that.
Like to occupy.
It's
I
basically...
didn't say it was a good website.
Christ on a stick. What am I looking at?
So it's basically YouTube, but without any of the modern amenities.
You'd have to see it for yourself, Core. I don't want to sound political or anything during the stream, but you'll understand as soon as you look at it.
I'm not drunk enough for this.
Don't do it,
Oh
whore.
my
It's
god.
an unholy place.
Well, it's just like Core's was gonna chase me off with a stick for using the text to speech, and then the Crash brings in the conspiracy. It's like Crash and I need to team up on BitView and do the conspiracy
Oh my
text to
God.
speech content.
Oh, no. I'm not. I
That would,
used it as storyline, Spider Fan, but I'm not into conspiracies at all.
Oh.
I really am not.
Oh, really? That's
It's great for like science fiction. It's wonderful for ideas.
Yes.
Oh, I agree.
Because I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and for some reason, like television shows from the '90s, like the X-Files, I was a huge fan of.
Oh, I love that too.
But it's fiction, and I haven't lost sight of that.
I see.
It's entertaining, but I'm not into it.
I just didn't know,
No.
since you're a big prepper person, if that was also like a. Yeah, I guess that was bad of me to, and Doc to, not Doc, Core to kind of assume that you were also into the conspiracy realm.
I wasn't
Oh,
assuming he's
Let
part
me
of it.
tell you guys about preppers.
It's more of
You've
a...
met a prepper, you've only met one prepper.
But
Out of
no,
all the groups of ever encountered on the internet, they are the most individualistic. Every guy is different from everyone else. They're different. We're different. I don't know how else to describe it. We're very hyper individualistic.
I see.
Yeah, no, I wasn't implying that he's a conspiracy nut. It's more of a, let's not derail the topic too much.
I understand.
All right. So should we move on now to the editing process?
Sure.
Sure, has everyone... Actually, no, wait, Spider, have you discussed what you... Because you haven't discussed your NFL research and stuff, have you?
Oh no, that's actually a very good point. So as far as that goes, when I'm writing my columns during the season, what I mainly do is Sunday I watch the various games that are available. Whether luckily through the internet I have access to be able to watch pretty much every game. Like on Sunday, I don't have to deal with necessarily region restrictions because usually with NFL or even of the other sports leagues, if you're just solely watching through a cable provider or even like a streaming TV provider, you have to deal with region restrictions as to what game is available in your area. Luckily, through the internet and various technology and sites and whatnot, I'm fortunate enough to not have to deal with that. So basically, I'll watch the important games of the day, or at least watch some of the most important games of the day. And usually Sunday Night Football, they do Football Night in America. They show the highlights of the various other games. And basically, after Sunday is over, and then sometimes I'll talk about what happened on Monday night also, depending on if it's a really interesting game. And the Thursday Night Football also. Thursday and Monday night, because they're out of Sunday, if that game's really interesting, I'll talk about it. But generally, after watching the games, more or less, I just sort of give my thoughts on what I saw and what that's a very opinion column or very much a recap. So basically, I can't say that there's necessarily a whole lot of research. Now, sometimes what I will do is I will go to NFL.com or sometimes ESPN.com, and I will look at either the box score just to get an idea to quote stats, or sometimes if I want to remember exactly what happened, like as far as how long a drive was, or in what order the scoring drives were, or lack thereof, what the exact order of the events were, to make sure that I'm getting it right, I'm remembering it right. I will look at that. So that's from a research perspective, that's all I would do there. And then basically, if like in the off season, like right now, basically now that free agency is going to come on here in about a month, basically I'll just be looking at the various news sites and then posting the news myself, and then giving my thoughts on the various signings. So that's, as I said, I don't know, that's definitely research in a way, but that's less factual research. Is more as just I'm citing a source and then giving my opinion on whatever news that is, or just double checking for factual purposes. I do like to fact check, certainly, when it comes to my NFL content, to make sure that I'm accurate in my representation or in my thoughts on what occurred.
And like that, you've already done more effort than 90% of the channels on these alternative sites. Shots fired.
I'd say 95.
90 to 95 sounds about correct. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, I do wish some folks would learn how to do a little bit of editing.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably a pretty good segue into our next part. I find editing tends to be most of my process outside of the actual gameplay recording portion, which can obviously, like, I'm about 20 hours into a game I've been working on recently. But I find editing probably tends to take the most time.
have to step away, guys. I'll be right back.
All right,
Okay.
but yeah,
You know,
so
Court, I have to say I really do. I resonate with that because when I used to do YouTube videos on a regular basis, I feel that I started off much simpler. I didn't really put a lot of editing into it. I would just start screen recorder and just sort of whatever gets recorded, and this goes up. And, excuse my dog, he really doesn't want to go to sleep right now. But
Oh,
that's my train of thought there for a moment. But yeah, I felt later into creating this sort of content, the editing was really 90% of the effort. Making the screen recordings and getting down what needs to get recorded was easy. Editing it to be, I guess, useful and insightful and how I wanted it to go, that it was tricky, and that's really the reason I wasn't really pumping out many videos, because I thought, okay, I can make a video in 30 minutes, but I'm going to spend a day and a half, maybe more, just editing this, and that's just one video.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I mean, it's the same for especially on the Zipcast, and I just used to spend just like I probably spent hundreds of hours editing, and especially that would get tricky when it was unscripted content, and I would, as I mentioned earlier, how I would just like basically just sit and talk and give my thoughts about stuff, but then from there edit around, and man, that would, you go from just a 25-minute raw video that isn't scripted, and then cutting from there down to whatever it would end up being, like a 5-minute video would take a long time. And of course, the thing with editing is you also want to get it just right, or at least pretty close to right. So, that can be a very arduous process. Now, of course, that would change for me when I would start to do more podcast style content. That was a less arduous process, but it was still nonetheless, I wanted to make sure that I would have things down, or at least where it would sound very good. And then, of course, recently, the editing process has actually gone very smoothly because, as previously mentioned, with the text-to-speech software, I can pretty much do the editing process in the text-to-speech software as far as what I'm saying, what the software is saying as far as the words. So from there, all I have to do is just take that audio file and then put it over the image, and then the image is pretty easy because I have whatever my topic is. I take that image, overlay it over my profile image, just boom, boom, and then once I have basically finished the text-to-speech software, from then I take that audio file and just put it on and mess with it. I've been using so that has actually become a very simple process, which is part of the reason why I've enjoyed making videos so much recently, because of how simple it has ended up becoming, for better or for worse.
welcome back. And yeah, that's honestly why I started much more heavily scripting my reviews, because honestly a lot of my time was spent just editing the audio to get my thoughts, or basically reshooting it over and over until I could get my thoughts in one cohesive sentence.
well, with mine, it sometimes takes up 12 channels on my digital mixer because I have to set each part of it on a track of its own and set if it needs effects to it, like echo or amplification or whatever it needs, and set the volume on it so that it will level out with the other tracks. But yeah, it's a lot of cut and move and insert and things like that to the audio to get it just perfect. And that can take quite a while. This podcast, for example, usually start it shortly after we're done. And then it takes me all the way into the next day because I'm taking out spacing where there's long spaces. And sometimes I have to censor something if something slips. And I have to put the intro into each section and my text-to-speech that does the announcement of what you're listening to. And then at the end, I have to put a little blurb of music and text-to-speech again saying, that this will continue, keep listening. And even with my other things that I do, it can take quite a while just to get the audio part done right. And as video, now if I'm doing it Spreaker to YouTube, they take care of the video part of it for me. It's just one static image. But if I'm making an actual video where you're going to see things moving around, that takes a lot of getting the images I want set up and put in my video editing software, along with, again, the audio, which will already have been done ahead of a time, and I just need to put it in there and secure it. But it's a lot of finding free for commercial use or using my own imagery or motions. I can find a lot of free for commercial use motions such as Pixabay or Pexels and putting that in there. Then you have to take it and full screen it. So you have to go in and scale it to fit the screen best. Or sometimes you need to do something to it for effect, like maybe shake it or cause it to wave or whatever. There are a lot of different things, and it takes a long time to render. Sometimes an hour-long video can take 8 hours to render.
Now, on that note, I'm curious, what software do you use, Linda, to edit the podcast and your various other content?
NCH Mixpad for the audio. If I have to do any pitch changes to any voices like I have with other videos in the past, I do that through Audacity and then put it into NCH. Also, NCH Video Pad for the video editing.
I see. I've heard good things about VideoPad as a video editing software. Is it pretty good?
It really is, and it's one of the more affordable ones out there.
I see. What about you, Core? What software do you use for content?
Okay, so I use a couple things actually. When I'm doing my audio recording, a lot of it I do in Audacity. That's how I capture my mic for my scripts and all that. For the editing itself, I use Sony Vegas because I really like Sony Vegas. I find it's a very versatile program. And it's basically a really strong program that has so many different options. It can basically do whatever I really needed to do at the time.
I see. Crash, what is your editing software of choice or editing softwares?
Oh dear. You guys aren't gonna believe this. I used to use Windows Movie Maker. I don't anymore, but that's what I started with, and I used that up until I think 2018, 2019.
Now, which movie maker was that? Was that
Windows,
Windows
Movie Maker?
Cause
You're talking an ancient, antiquated editing program nobody used anymore.
We talking version 6?
But it fit right in with Vidly, so I thought, well, heck, why not? Huh?
He was asking like version 6, because once you get to Windows 7, that was Windows Live Movie Maker, and that was a whole different kind of software. Are you talking like the Movie Maker that was on like XP and Vista?
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
It was antiquated, but very, very user-friendly. And I had figured it out fairly quickly. Right now, I have to use 2 editing programs. One to... Okay, when I make a video, I've learned in the past, I could sit there, turn the camera on, and just leave it running. But the editing of that actually took longer than for me just to film, or excuse me, no one uses film anymore. Video a very short clip where I read my script, do some talking, turn the camera off. Not off, but just punch the button, put it back on, read the script, and so on and so forth. I found that was a lot. Oh gosh, that saved me so much time than just turning the camera on, leaving it running, and then going back to edit, oh gosh, probably a full hour-long video into shorter clips. So now I just turn it on, turn it off, get onto my 2 editing programs, sometimes I have to run it through filters, I have to apply music, and I use royalty-free music. I wanted to make that clear to everybody. You know how you guys already know about me and original content. You already
I
know.
do that too. Either my own music that I've written or something that I can get for free or licensed, because I also pay Epidemic Sound $75 a year to use theirs on Spreaker and YouTube.
Yeah, and I try to keep everything as original as possible. I'm a big fan of original content. But editing for me, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I've noticed with a lot of the bigger channels that just get in front of the camera and yak for a little while, these guys can go on and on for 20 minutes without a break. And it's like, ugh, come on. There's lots of silent moments. There's lots
It's
of
exhausting.
dead air. Come on, guys. You can edit this.
It's actually funny you mentioned earlier. I actually have a coworker who has a YouTube channel as well, and he actually does still use actual 8mm film.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
my.
That is cool.
Yeah,
How
like
does he
actually kinda
develop?
cool to
Who
me.
does it for him?
I don't know. He also likes to go to garage sales, estate sales, try to pick up lots of different little things like student movies, old like home stuff, and he just looks and he likes to edit them, combine them with music and stuff too as well, because he's got a lot of old hi-fi equipment. It's pretty cool. Me and him go back and forth just talking about different things at work.
I see.
Interesting.
So what about you, Doc? What is your editing software or audio software or softwares of choice?
I honestly have so many I don't consider it a software. I call it an arrangement or my regiment. Well, my regiment consists of well, I'll start with the audio. For audio, I just record in Audacity. I don't really do any edits in Audacity. Maybe I'll edit the wavelength if I see like a huge spike in audio, like a microphone pop. But I'll export that into a wave. I never work with lossy material during the editing process because it's obviously going to get transcoded down multiple times. After that, I use Lightcore. I use Vegas Pro. I use version 15 in particular. And I use it for both video and audio because it actually has a pretty decent DAW. Like, I've edited songs together using Vegas before. I also have FL Studio, an older version. It's like 6 years old, and I'm still trying to teach myself. For images and stills, that sort of thing, I usually use Fireworks CS6, which is actually the last version of Fireworks. Adobe doesn't develop this program anymore. I use a little bit of Photoshop CS6 if I want to add like filters and effects over videos, and sometimes I'll use After Effects, but usually I can color code and do everything I need from within Vegas. So yeah, like Core says, Vegas is a very versatile program, and one of my favorite features about it is you can actually render using your graphics card as opposed to your CPU, which cuts the rendering time exponentially. So yeah, it's quite useful, I think.
Also, what a surprise! Adobe abandoning something. Where have I heard that before?
Probably their most useful piece of software at that.
Yeah.
Apparently vector editing doesn't exist to Adobe anymore. Everybody has to use Photoshop because Photoshop can do anything.
Honestly, I don't use Adobe because, honestly, they're a scam. Why am I going
They
to
are.
pay hundreds of dollars a year for an annual subscription or monthly subscription when there's so many better, cheaper, or even free alternatives nowadays?
Even free.
Yeah, it's like there's
Even free.
there's plenty of open source visual editing that's just
GIMP.
a lot cheaper. Yeah, GIMP.
Like my sister is always using GIMP, and it's like, and I've seen her do it, and it's like, I mean, just from what I know about Photoshop, it's as good as Photoshop is. I mean, I'm just looking at the different settings and stuff.
Close, but the
It's
problem
impressive.
with GIMP is there's just so much documentation behind Photoshop. Like, if there's something you want to create, you just Google it. You can find a guide to create essentially anything. No, GIMP, it's starting to pick up and gain traction, but it differs subtly in the way it works compared to Photoshop. And when it comes to following guides, it'll completely throw you off. So that's my biggest issue. But the good part is, older versions of Photoshop like CS5, CS6, you can get these copies fairly cheap, and there's no annual subscriptions. It's an indefinite license, which personally, that's the only way I will buy a piece of software. I will never pay for a cloud subscription.
Pretty much.
That's the way NCH is. It's you buy it outright and that's it.
That's good
That's
to know.
true, and I have told myself in recent times I am not spending continuous money on my internet projects, because that is a money pit right there.
The only
Yeah.
exception I ever paid for was XSplit, and that's because, well, XSplit is a pretty strong live streaming and recording software, and it also wasn't nearly as outrageously priced as a lot of these other video and making softwares and stuff. It's like there's just so much garbage out there.
That's funny you should say
Now-
that. There's so much garbage, and most of that garbage isn't even free. It's all paid software.
like-
Usually it's the free open source software that sort of swoops into the rescue these days.
It's like cable TV. You're paying to get screwed over.
Basically, yeah, you're paying for equipment and paying for them as a broker to watch effectively nothing.
You're paying them to watch commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I going to pay for content that's 1/3 of it's just straight ads? No, get that out of here.
Well, what's so funny about it is, 10 years ago, paying for something that had ads seemed like, oh, this is normal. This is just all that we have. But nowadays, it feels like an antiquated notion to actually pay for something that comes with advertisements. It's like, what? Pay for that? And you have to watch ads? Really? I thought that's the payment that you give them. You watch the ads.
Well, and of course, even ads, especially on the internet, even ads have become rarer because now almost everybody has some sort of ad blocker software, to the point where you'll get websites that are like, we hate you because you use ad block and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, well, then don't have as many obnoxious ads and I won't use ad block.
You know, it's
I
funny
agree.
you say that, Spider.
Some ads make sense to me. Some
But the
ads
majority-
make sense to me. I'm sorry, Doc.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Told you guys I was chatty, right? I did admit to that, right?
Yeah, you did.
Some ads make sense because they got to pay the bills. But the staggering, mind-boggling amount of ads that show up on some sites is just ridiculous.
Well, and
Go
not
ahead,
to get too off topic, but I do just want to mention the worst ones. And I've known people that deal with this. Is clickbait stuff, but not just like usual clickbait. Like, I don't know if you like look at the end of an article on like just any site, whatever it's about. Like, it can be on Facebook, or I think it's sometimes happens on Facebook, or you can see it on like you're reading a article about political news, sports news, video game news, whatever it is, and like on the side there will be like those. This mom found out a way to save herself $1,000 on car insurance or something, and you click, or whatever. Like, you click on
That's
it,
everywhere.
and it's telling a story, but it keeps like, and there's the different panels or the 40 stars that you didn't realize had AIDS or like or whatever. We're like, and then you just click on it over and over again. And I've actually talked to people about it, and those are sites that full on exist because of the advertisements, where like it's super slow and they're impossible to use and they're total clickbait just to milk money off of you for the advertisements on whatever on those web pages. Because if it's a list of however many celebrities or whatever the case may be, and it's like 40 slides, well, that's a lot of advertisements. So one thing that just even as Doc was saying, like even 10 years ago, I mean, I can imagine that stuff existed, but that seems like that type of stuff is within the last few years that has started to pop up. I mean, there's always been clickbait to some extent, but that specific type of clickbait is seemingly new, at least to me anyway.
I
know
would
about
say it's
y'all.
probably because of the prevalence of ad blockers. They realize, okay, if we put these scripts on websites, a good amount of people are going to have them blocked. So we just need to have these posted as if they're legitimate articles, even though the contents of them are, yeah.
Right. So, sort of getting back on, or I say sort of getting back on topic here. As far as the video content editing software that I use, for many, many years, up until, in fact, just recently, I used Windows Live Movie Maker. I used it back when it was still on Windows 7, and then I worked to get it on Windows 10 when on various computers it didn't fault anymore. I went through the depths of the internet to get it. I don't want to brag because being braggadocious isn't necessarily the nicest thing to do, but I mastered Windows Live Movie Maker. I got everything that I could out of it, and of course it was basic and it wasn't nearly as advanced and whatnot. But I milked it for all it was worth and really tried to get the best out of it that I could, because it's what I had. It was simple to use. I didn't ever feel intimidated by it, and for basically my whole video content creation career, I didn't ever feel the need to get anything better than that. And I will say something that will probably shock all of you. I have never, but once, actually I say never, I think I used it once, used Audacity. I only used Audacity once, ever. Every other video I did, ever, yes. The only, and that was for, I think it was an episode of when I did Flash Games Review. It was one of those. But all my web vlogs, I never used Audacity. I never used it for my podcast style content, and I don't use it now. When I used to do my podcast style content, what I would actually do, those Spider Fan ons, what I would actually use was just the default audio recorder on Windows, or I would actually take my old MP3 player that I have, and it has an audio recorder on there, and I would actually speak into that. Because at least to me, I'm not an audiophile, so it all sounded the same to me. So, and I never got any complaints necessarily about the audio quality itself. So that's just what I used. Now, currently, what I'm using right now, obviously, as previously mentioned, I used the text to speech, but as far as the video, to make it a video, I'm using this free software that you can pay for, mainly to get rid of the watermark, and I think there's some other features that are added with it as well. I haven't done necessarily a whole lot of deep research, but it's called Capwing, KAPWING.com. It's actually a free in-browser, by the way. You don't have to download it. It's in-browser video editing software. And at least what I have been using it for, it has been very effective and very useful. I don't know necessarily how good of an editing software it is, because obviously my videos I'm currently doing for BitView are pretty basic.
Nice.
So
I have to go. I'll have to be at work in just a little while, so it was cool talking to you, but I gotta leave.
Later, mate.
Have a good one.
Crash.
You
Have
too.
a good one.
Later, Crash.
And
So just as far as what I'm using right now, that's what I'm using right now, and as I have said, I'm very happy with it right now. It's allowed me to be on my Chrome OS computer, not have to use a Windows computer, because for the longest time, I had to borrow somebody else's computer or just use a Windows computer that lying around or whatever the case may be to edit content, because for my own personal internet use, I use Chrome OS. I have a Chromebook that I've used for a number of years now, and it gets the job done for just my personal use. So I didn't have any editing software that I could use on that computer. So now with Capwing, because it's in browser, I can use it. So at least initially, I'm very impressed with that. I'm very happy with that. So that's what I've been using recently.
Guys, we're talking about Windows Movie Maker 6. Do you guys remember seeing videos on YouTube back in the day when they'd have like a photo album of something and everyone was using all these different transitions between each frame?
Yep. No, I remember the transitions and the classic Windows Movie Maker thing, or just as far as like if you're watching an old video on YouTube that you can tell it was done in Windows Movie Maker, is the whatever that light blue background and like the text that fades in and out.
Right.
Like the Comic Sans, or sometimes it was another font that would fade in and out. And then, of course, for some reason, and I was always convinced that it was because it was royalty free or something. Obviously, it was made by an actual band, so I think it wasn't royalty free. But you'd always have those old videos, and they would always be at 007 sound system song, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And then, or it would be that let the bodies hit the floor, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
That got
like,
so old so quick.
That gets old. And I actually remember, especially because back in the day, I mean, this was 10 plus years ago, when I got into Club Penguin, and man, you'd have these tutorials that were just like filled with that song, and it got to a point where I actually was like, okay, I'm not watching any video that has this song in it, because it got to a point where it was just like too much. It was really. Now I look back on it and it's nostalgic. With the best
Hypercam 2 with the notepad tutorials. Hypercam
2, yeah. Hypercam 2.
You gotta, yes. Yeah, it's gotta be unregistered.
Yes, Hypercam 2, because no one bought Hypercam 2. Everybody just used the free version.
Just like WinRAR. No one ever paid for WinRAR.
But then the funny thing is when you look at those videos, it would always be like the top comment on like all those videos now is like, "All rise for the YouTube national anthem." It's just like, and I was like, this is so accurate. At least it was.
That never gets old to me.
Of course, now with the insane amount of copyright flags, where if you play 2 seconds of music, you immediately get banned. You know, it's that is no longer a thing that
they just take all your money.
Well, depends. Either they'll take all your money, or sometimes videos will get full on taken down. You know, that's also happened.
If they can license it, 2/3 of the time they'll just put advertisement, but there's a good possibility that you'll get a strike still. Although it's not nearly as prevalent as it used to be.
Yeah, of course that's. But yeah, so that was, and I at one point I actually intended to use Windows Movie Maker 6 instead of Windows Live Movie Maker, and I actually had found a download link for it, and I had intended. There was like a point in my brain where I was like, I'm gonna make these videos, and then like, I remember it was like a New Year's resolution coming up or something, where I was like, I will get to a point where I'm going to transition into using Windows Movie Maker 6, and then I couldn't find the link again, so then I just never ended up using it. So, but because I think even though obviously that was used for like XP and stuff, I think that's still that software is still like somewhere floating around on the internet.
Sort of. There were two versions. There was 2.5 for XP, and then there was 6 for Vista, which people usually just copied from Vista to 7, which they were more or less the same. They just updated the font works and the backgrounds a little bit. But I actually have a modded copy that allows up to 1080p, which natively wasn't in the program. So if you ever wanted to reprieve your interest in trying it again, I could send you my copy.
Oh,
cool. Honestly, by the time I started making content creation, Windows Movie Maker was truly dead, outside of in the hands of high schoolers on outdated school computers. So I never really used it much. Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I tried using Windows Movie Maker 6 on 10, and every time they do a system update, it would wipe it out completely. I got tired of having to go find it and re-download it again.
Well, and the other thing is, especially now, I mean, because there's been different Windows computers purchased recently, I don't even think Windows Movie Maker even comes default on Windows computers anymore. I think these days, if you want it, you have to download it from either somewhere on the internet or I think on the Windows Store or something like that.
Pretty sure
Yeah,
it
that's right.
doesn't come with it at all. I thought they stopped supporting it entirely, and pretty much the only versions you're finding out there are made by modders.
Yeah, that's right. They stopped shipping it actually with Windows 7 all the way back in 2009.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, that's when you'd have to go out and download the Windows Live version.
Because I just remember on when our first Windows 7 computer in 2010 came with it, but then almost every computer after that had it up until maybe when because I'm trying to think every Windows 7 computer that I used had it defaultly on there, but then when 10 came, it did not come default anymore. Stumbling over my words here.
That might be because if you buy a machine from, like, say, Dell or HP, Lenovo, oftentimes they'll take a base copy of Windows, but they'll add a bunch of, like, software that they think is commonly used to it, so you don't have to go out and get it yourself. But because I've always built my machines or just reinstalled all my copies from scratch, I always just, have the default. So I know Microsoft themselves stopped shipping it with Windows 7, but I know a lot of manufacturers would try to put it on for you to save you the trouble from having to find it.
Yeah, because I mean, when you would go to like Best Buy,
Yeah.
Well,
they're nefarious for putting a lot of bloat on their machines.
More like Worst Buy. Heyo.
Whoa, Core is savage.
Geek Squad.
R.I.P. Circuit City.
God, I miss
Those were the days.
Circuit City had such good warranties.
Yeah, they did.
That's probably why they don't exist anymore. They spent too much on those warranties. But by God, yeah, like if anything ever broke, they replaced or repaired it. Or unlike Best Buy, if they couldn't repair or replace it, they would give you all the money you originally spent back on it, not what it sells for now. Like, we tried to do that with, say, my first PS3. They would not repair it. Well, they could not repair it, and they would not... It was either replace it with the new model, or we'll give you what the new model of the Slim is selling for. It's like, we won't give you that original $600 you spent. Have the finger.
Do we want to go on about GameStop's 5-minute warranty?
Yeah, I've never actually had to use their warranty for anything. Personally, in my personal experience, but just as far as like, the thing that I always have had problems about GameStop with is their trade-ins.
You walk out the door, the game's automatically
terrible.
lost 80% of its value.
Which is why almost any new game that comes out, tips for gaming gamer audience, which is probably a lot of people because of Core's fandom, and most people may already know this, but some don't. If there's a new game, unless it's a first-party Nintendo game prices always go down in value. Sometimes very fast. So unless you're just really dying to play it, wait. Not even that long. Like, I mean, if you wait 2-3 months, 6 months, sometimes a year. Like, I'll just even give just a quick example. Like on Switch, there was Kill to Kill the game, which of course shows how much of a degenerate weeb I am. If immediately when you look up what Kill to Kill is, but that game came out. It was $60, brand new. I waited a year because I was like, this is a third-party game. This will go down in value. It's a licensed game. This is going to go down. Now it's not even $20. So it's a game that I wanted to play. I was like, $60 is too much for this. And now it's like way cheap. And then of course you get games that, for whatever reason, if the Anthem or that type of stuff where it's like Fallout 76 worth like $5, we're just trying to give it away.
And I feel that's especially the case with sports games. You wait a year for a sports game, a $60 AAA will be like, if you're lucky, like $10.
Well,
It depends.
The thing with sports games is those are things where I would argue that those are probably the only ones in a weird way, because if for a non-sports fan, it's easy to go, well, those are just worthless. Thing with a sports game is, I would argue that those are probably the only games that you should kind of buy immediately, because a lot of the times with those, what you are buying is the very current roster, and if you are into the NFL or into the NBA or are a soccer fan, you're playing FIFA, you want that. So, and it's misleading. It's totally cheesy thing to do that EA does and 2K does, because they could put out like NBA 2K and then you just buy a roster update. They want people to physically buy it every year. It's sort of it's a totally money grabbing scam by them.
So I'm going to go with the opposite stance. Instead, you should just give EA the finger and not support them at all. Let them die and let someone else take the license. That isn't a greedy money
I
grabbing
refuse to
a-hole.
support EA.
Well, and I know a lot of people feel that way. That's
Especially with all the scummy things they've done over the last year. No, honestly, I cannot in good faith endorse anything EA puts out.
well. Now
There's
we've
not
got
a
way off
worse
topic 'cause now we're
two-letter,
ripping
not
on
a
EA
worse
Sports.
two-letter profanity word than EA.
Hey, this is a review channel, so let's be honest. Ripping into EA is something I do professionally.
You get a round of applause from me.
You script and edit a lot of content, ripping EA.
Yeah, it's almost as if EA used to have a lot of good franchises until they killed every studio they got a hold of. Said like Dead Space, what's it called? Command and Conquer, The Sims, Star Wars Battlefront. The original ones were fantastic. Then EA
I
killed
still
them.
haven't played those. I need to.
And then Linda's just like, I have no clue.
Yeah, basically, I don't do sports, so I have no idea, and I don't really do gaming either. I mean, I used to play Tetris and Tetris 2 all the time, but
And
that's
now,
about it.
And now that theme is
Timeless
in
classic.
everyone's head.
Timeless classics. Puzzle game from Russia. The puzzle classic.
Oh,
Well,
What's under the puzzle pieces of mine?
do we have anything left to say on the subject of video production? Final
No, I'm
thoughts?
done.
I think I've about covered it.
I feel like, at least for myself, I pretty much expressed what I want to say.
You want to
Same
take the
here.
baton, Core?
let's see. I was gonna say I did have a bit of a point earlier when you was talking about. It's like I find it funny considering I do the exact opposite. I do almost all of my audio recording in Audacity and all my audio editing. But yeah, with Sony Vegas, I really do like how versatile it is. Because, there's so many. Because with video game reviews, it's a very visual medium. Like, you could do written reviews, but it just doesn't do it justice. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
like journal, like I think that video reviews are the best way to do game reviews because you can actually highlight every single point you're trying to make by showing it in gameplay, by finding exactly what you're talking about and be like, this is what's so wrong with it, or this is what it did well. And I find that it's I find Sony Vegas has been a really helpful asset for that. And I do a lot of editing, because said, like when I go to do this review I'm working on, I've got over 20 hours of footage I'm gonna have to sift through.
Wow.
So it helps to have such a good software that really doesn't cause me any issues and will render the video fast.
You know, I have to ask you,
What's up?
when you're trying to make these points in games, like, what does it feel like to have to play through an entire game just to capture 30 seconds worth of footage to make a point? Do you feel that it's, do you ever get tired of doing it, or do you have a system to sort of speed it up? Like, how do you go about doing that?
Honestly, I don't have a problem with it, because it's like, really, how else am I going to get a fair assessment of it if I don't play as much of the game as I can, you know? It's like I can't give you a unbiased, accurate opinion if I don't take the time to find as much about it as I can. And that's why also I do a lot of research. I try to see if other people are experiencing these issues and what's causing them. Like, grand example, Resident Evil 3. You've seen my Resident Evil 3 review in comparison, right?
More than once.
You remember that bug I was talking about, the audio bug?
Yeah, I do.
Like, I had that issue plague me for weeks until I finally got a run without it. So I had to sit through and play the entire game in one sitting, because the way it happened last time, I booted the game back up and the audio wasn't working. So I wasn't risking letting that happen.
And this happens on all platforms, or it was just PS4?
I've heard, at least with Resident Evil 2, so I think it's an engine bug. I've seen it reported on PC and Xbox as well with Resident Evil 2.
Oh,
I actually haven't seen many people report it on the Resident Evil 3 remake, but then again, Resident Evil 3 remakes had a lot of negative attention in general. I think people just didn't experience it as much. But it said, I had the video footage showing it. Any other questions you want, Doc, or anyone?
No, I think we just about covered it.
Alright then.
When you have no questions to ask, you get confused. When you get confused, you want answers. When you want answers, you go to the library. When you go to the library, you meet Dr. Fraser Crane at the library. When you go meet Dr. Fraser Crane at the library, he gives you therapy for your issues. When you get therapy for your issues, you end up being happy. When you are happy, you go to Las Vegas. And when you go to Las Vegas, you gamble your hair on a slot machine. Don't gamble your hair on a slot machine. Instead, listen to the awesome Exiles Podcast.
Yay!
Note to self: revoke Spider-Fan's microphone privileges. I shouldn't have
his
returned them.
text-to-speech privileges and his microphone privileges.
At this point, he's just gonna have text.
Banned. Banned.
You want me to help you set
Not
up a
the first place
WordPress
I've been
spider?
banned from.
I'm banishing him back to that Discord that shall not be
Don't
named.
put him back to that Discord.
Yeah,
That's cruel and unusual.
I'm only
punishment.
gonna get into fights with people.
Alright, so we hope you all enjoyed our podcast. We'll see you all same time next week. You all have a good one. This has been Core.
This has been
Linda.
Spider Fan.
Doc.
And, well, Crash is gone because of work. So, go check out Crash as well. Y'all have a good one. We'll see y'all next time. Peace out.